עמוד 300,
We will read from Taz,
דברי הארי, אות
item 10, the words of the Ari.
למעלה. ואז צריך שגם הנוקבה של הכתר
Item 10, what is above? Nukva of the Keter might also receive, which is the record of phase 3, from her upper root. The Nukva, which is phase 3, which is phase of Chokhmah, there is her upper root, the upper Chokhmah. Hence, the root of the upper Chokhmah descends. Hence, the root of the upper Chokhmah descends in Bina, Bina in Chesed, etc., until Yesod descends in Malchut. What is written here? The root of the upper Chokhmah descends in Bina until Yesod descends in Malchut. Afterwards, that Keter that rose to the place of the root of Malchut descends in its place. Why? For it cannot be there, since it has no similarity with the root of Malchut. At the same time that I say that Yesod descends to Malchut, then the Keter that rose to the place of Malchut descends to its place. Where will be its place? Below Malchut of the Rosh. For it cannot be there. Why? Since it has no similarity with the root of Malchut. It is Guf. In addition, it is a branch, and Malchut is a root. What are these two things? Hence, it is worse than her. As much as I gave already two reasons, and also, hence, although it receives from the Keter, it is worse than her. However, it comes down to its place and can be there together with Zon that were in its place, since they are all three are equal, having received equally from the root of the upper Keter. Here two things are written. What is written here? He says, 1. That the Nukva of Keter also needs to receive from the upper root in Chokhmah. This is 1. Therefore, he says, the upper Chokhmah descends in Bina, and Yesod descends to Malchut. Naturally, the light of Keter that was in Malchut needs to descend below Malchut, since it has no similarity with the root. In addition, it is a branch, and Malchut is a root. Hence, although it receives from Keter, it is worse. So, what is there in that it receives from Keter? However, it comes down to its place, and there, when it descends to its place, the Keter is below Malchut of the Rosh. It can be there together with Zon that were in its place. I don't say that they need to descend, however, they remain in the place of Keter, since then all three are equal, having received equally from the root of the upper Keter. Let's continue. Look at item 11. 11. At that time, the illumination of the root of Chokhmah was extended downward, and then the male was incorporated in the Nukva. That the coupling is made on phase 3, which is the phase of Nukva, the phase of Chokhmah. The Nukva receives first, since she equalizes in merit with the male, and both of them receive from the root of the upper Keter equally. So what is there? Since they now receive from the root of Chokhmah, the Nukva receives first from all three here. And they receive from her. That is to say, it's as if the light of Keter and four of clothing receive from whom? From Chokhmah, and are incorporated in her, as in a virtuous woman is her husband's crown. Let's continue. Yet, the reason for the descent of the root of Chokhmah below to the place of the root of Binah is for several reasons. We always learned the opposite. If a phase is missing, phase 4, there is only phase 3, we learn, we don't learn that the light of Chokhmah is in the vessel of Binah and the light of Yesod is in the vessel of Malchut. We always learn the opposite. The light of Chokhmah is in the vessel of Keter and the light of Yesod. The light of Malchut is in the vessel of Yesod. And here it is written seemingly the opposite. Let's see what he explains, how he explains it. 12. Yet the reason for the descent of the root of Chokhmah below to the place of the root of Binah, etc., is for several reasons. The first is that because she's near to the root of Keter, who? The root of Chokhmah, she cannot shine, and her light is annulled in the light that is extended from the Keter. Therefore, she needs to descend to whom? To Binah. Also, the same reason that the light of Chokhmah needs to be in the place of the root of Binah is that she must draw nearer down so that she, the Nukva in the Keter, may receive from him first. This causes this brings the root closer to her, 1 degree more than the closeness of the male in Keter to his root. That is to say, previously with Chokhmah there was some distance. It was close to the record of clothing. Now that it is further down, it's closer to the root of the 5 and 6, to the records of the female of phase 3 that stands below the record of Keter. Yes? In addition, we have explained that the roots, in the world of the roots, they never cease giving below, since the lower ones want to receive. Hence, the root of Keter does not stop imparting downwards the whole time that Zon are outside their vessel. This is why Chokhmah cannot bestow. Hence, when Chokhmah departs and descends down below the place of Binah, her place will remain, the last place is vacant. At that time, the abundance flows from the root of Keter and fills that vacant space, Chokhmah bestows downwards. What is written here? The abundance flows from the root of Keter and fills that vacant space. That Chokhmah descended from there. At that time, Chokhmah is in whom? In Binah. She can bestow downwards. It follows that Ben, even if the Keter bestows, he cannot revoke the illumination of Chokhmah. So now inner light, when the nukva of the Keter must also receive from her upper root. Interpretation. This great coupling that was made on the common screen of the male and the female together that drew the great light of the upper Keter, as explained, remained entirely in the Rosh. It cannot expand to the Guf because the phase of coarseness of extension of phase 4 is absent there. There is a rule, the record of clothing remained only in the Rosh. This matter of the association that was made there, the phase of extension to phase 3, was sufficient for the 10 Sefirot of the Rosh, since there is no actual clothing in them. However, it is not enough for actual clothing inside the Peh. Thus he gives a rule. If there was free of extension, a screen of phase 4, there could be expansion in the Guf. But since it only has 4 of clothing, and 4 of clothing cannot have a coupling except with the participation of phase 3, then phase 3 participated with 4 of clothing. But this is sufficient only in that can draw only in actuality, in potential, in the Rosh of the level. Thus in the Rosh, Rabash, what are you asking?
Why is there a need for a coupling in the Rosh? In the Rosh, there is no refinement. So what do you ask? Student, why does 4 need to incorporate with 3? Why should phase 4, why does it need phase 3? Because it doesn't become a coupling anyway. In the Guf, the Rosh remains. So in the Rosh, the 4 can be alone to make a coupling. Rabash. Why do we need to make a coupling in 4 of the Rosh in the first place? I ask you. If you say that there is no refinement in the Rosh, it's got the level of Keter. At the level of Keter, you need to make another calculation. There's a difference between clothing and coarseness. In the clothing, only Vak shines. So you need 4 of clothing, Vak of Keter. So if the Rosh were refined in the Rosh, Gar of Keter, why do you need 4 of clothing? For the lower one. For the lower one. That means that the lower one too receives it in the Rosh. Here, it means that the meaning is not so clear. The lower one, which is called Parzuf Ab, that degree will be in the Rosh of the lower one as well. But when we speak here of the Guf of the upper one, he doesn't elaborate here. But in fact, it shines in clothing, it shines in the Rosh of the lower one, not in the Rosh of the upper one. This is 1. 2. What comes out here, 4 of clothing, is another matter. Afterwards, we learn that it does shine in the Guf. Student, Tamim of Sag, Rabash. So the Rosh comes out, which is and the incorporation will be later. You find that even in clothing, it also shines in the guf in a different way. What is a different way? After the coarseness expands in the guf, it can expand as well. The screen of phase 3 of coarseness, it draws on it, and on that it has a deficiency. So from this, since he has records of phase 4 of clothing left, incorporation, he can draw which force on phase 3? On phase 4. In other words, if he doesn't have a screen, he cannot receive at all. He only has a screen on phase 3. He has a record from the clothing. So on that, phase 3, he can draw in order to bestow in phase 4. Since it is only a screen in phase 3, there are two deficiencies here. One, that there's only Vak. The Vak can draw in order to bestow, and that in order to bestow that it draws can shine only in the Rosh of the degree, without expansion in the Guf. Student, there's a participation with the clothing in the Nekudot. There's no participation at the Nekuda. It is Sag, Rabash. We learn the coupling of clothing in clothing. What is? We learn 3 of coarseness. Here we still don't have ta'amim, tastes. We're only saying that the 3 was incorporated in 4. Afterwards, there was a coupling on 3. Since the 3 was incorporated in 4 first, so 3 had keter, and then that 3 also expands below in the guf. But that's after it's refined. It was not incorporated there. So there's no expansion. What did we learn on top? But it does not attain for clothing in practice inside the guf. Still, because the light of Keter had awakened to return and expand in the guf as in the beginning, even though it did not return. This awakening still caused to once again the disclosure of the coarseness of the guf in it from the time it was there in the beginning. Since the coarseness of the guf appeared in it, its form has changed from that of Malchut of the Rosh, and it no longer had any semblance to her, since it has grown as far from her as the guf is far from the Rosh. Therefore, let's go back again. Hence, while the phase of coarseness of clothing awakened in the male of the vessel of Keter to clothe this great light in actual clothing, meaning to clothe in the 10 Sefirot of the guf, although he said he couldn't. Therefore, because of that, the phase of guf incorporated in the light of Keter that stands at the place of Malchut of the Rosh immediately became apparent. What is written here? We learned that the light of Keter that was clothed in the guf could rise to Malchut of the Rosh, because the whole screen in itself went up. Therefore, here too, what he says was clothed in the guf. The guf in itself was refined. But now, we said that zone in the male of the Kli of Keter went down, so there's already a guf on the degree. And you need the phase of the guf on the light of Keter itself as well. So the light of Keter that was in the vessel of Malchut was also willing to go below Malchut. That's what he says now. Hence, while the phase of coarseness of clothing awakened in the male of the vessel of Keter, of clothing, to clothe this great light in actual clothing. Of whom am I speaking? The male, the screen, the Shimo? The phase of the goof incorporated in the light of Keter was clothed once in the body that stands at the place of Malchut of the Rosh immediately became apparent. Along with it, his form became different from Malchut of the Rosh, as by this it is regarded as having been instantly separated from Malchut and departed from there to Malchut, to his place under Malchut, since disparity of form separates and distinguishes the spirituals from one another. Since he departed from the place of Malchut, you find that he was immediately separated from the light of the upper Keter, and only in the light of Keter previous restricted illumination remained in him.